Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Sports Gamer, and more specifically, welcome back to the Wraparound as we return here for yet another season of our ECL recap show. Brought to you, of course, by our lovely friends at Kovalon Lockritzy. We started up this show last year as a way to take a look back through all of the events throughout the ECL, of course, not just the Elite Division, and we are back again, yet again, for another lovely season. Is it worth reiterating? It is worth reiterating. So with that, we are going to get down to business here on this show. A lot to cover. First and foremost, though, before we get to the individual league breakdowns, it is worth reminding you all, of course, that right now, at least for the Finns that are checking this out, that are on the PS5 side of things, the PlayStation Showdown registrations are up and available. It's live. Make sure to get involved, both a 1v1 and 4v4 format with this particular tournament. So again, make sure to get involved. Articles here. Go ahead, check out the information and get involved. Let's take a look at the ECL Elite Division. The peak, the pinnacle within the ECL, the best of the best, going head to head in this winter campaign. And so far, shout out to Yippee Voskala leading the way. Now, we are going to go off of points percentage because, of course, it matters now perhaps more than ever with the new point system. 3 points for a regulation win, 2 for an overtime win, 1 for an overtime loss, and, of course, no points for a regulation loss. Hence, we are seeing a 2.36 points per game tally for Yip, already halfway, just about, through their season with 14 of 30 games played and a fantastic 10-1-1 record. They have been beyond stellar, and we'll talk more about them in detail in a moment. But of course, you also need to talk about strikers up there, Mayhems as well. They did really well last season, 5-2-2 through their first 10 games, and Tunnel Vision, the only other team right now over that kind of mythical mark of at least 2 points per game. Rounding out those playoff positions, you have H-Reds, the Blackjacks, Goons, and Hamo. Obviously still a long way to go in this season, but there are quite a few teams here that I think that some people would have been surprised to see. You know, the Blackjacks have been kind of kicking around in the Elite Division for a long time, but are they good enough to get back into the playoffs? They certainly think so, and so far so good. Goons underwent a lot of changes this offseason. Kriketzi departing the team, perhaps the biggest change. Hamo there as well, a tremendous, tremendous accomplishment that we've seen from them in the past couple of seasons, but obviously now looking to get back into the playoffs. You have the 4 teams that are currently safe from any sort of relegation battle with Unwanted. Polski Boys, the Pro Division champions from last season. Vesapampa and the Fallon Coal Miners. And then you get down into those rough spots, the relegation series spots, Roots Gaming, Lekstugan HC, and Radical. And then down at the very bottom, if the season were to end right now, it would be Poggers going down to the Pro Division, a team themselves included who thought they would end up being in this spot. I don't know if they would have predicted 1 and 1. 1. How many losses do you have, fellas? There we go. That's why, because I'm still getting used to that new format. Let's be honest. Let's keep it there. The 1-8, because you got your overtime. So fun stuff there. Not much fun that Poggers are having right now, though, to say the least. With that said, though, I did want to kind of take a look at Yippee Voskala and what they have been able to do so far, being in first place. They saw a huge departure from their lineup with Antti leaving the team, but you talk about Tonkelia stepping in, who has been fantastic, 23 points in 14 games. And in general, look at the all-around scoring that has been there. Even Carcass, as a defenseman, though, 10 points in 14 games is fantastic. So the offense has been exactly as you would want it to be, and the goaltending as well. We have seen great performances from Kazu in the past, and so far he is looking like the goalie that a lot of people thought he could be, playing up towards his full potential. 87% on the draw so far this season. So again, a long way to go in the Elite. Yippee Voskala leading the way right now. Some teams that need to turn things around. And quickly, why not a brief look at the numbers? We talked about strikers and the offensive output. Well, it's led by Eki, 37 points right now, leading the league. One of just 4 players over the 30-point mark on the season so far. That includes his teammate Potzloff, and then, of course, Filipoika and Benito, a dynamic duo, to say the least. On H-Reds, your leading goal scorers, well, it's Eki and JM of Polsky Boys. Of course, someone who had Elite Division experience in the past is back in the Elite Division with those pro champions, and what an acquisition that is proving to be. Keep an eye out at the end of the season. Could very well go down as the top transfer. But for now, you got to look at the Elite Division. And again, a lot to follow as we continue on. Let's take a look at the ECL's Pro Division. So far this season, of course, it is the 2 groups in Pro, the direct pipeline, perhaps, to the Elite Division. We'll take a look at Group 1 first, sorting by points percentage. It is Gotham Knights leading the way, a club with quite a bit of elite experience within their midst. You got Karani, Rimpe, Ilmari as well. Goaltending-wise, you look at these numbers and you say, okay, is Disco Kraken going to kind of be the guy at the top of the list for them as the season goes on with the, rather inferior save percentage, if we're putting it as kindly as we can. But what stands out to me, the lack of saves, the lack of goals against, not due to like their performance in general, but just Gotham Knights playing pretty good defense is kind of what that says to me at this stage of the season. You're probably not seeing all that many opportunities per game. It can be difficult to stop pucks when you're not getting all that many shots against. So Gotham Knights have done very, very well at the start of this season, leading the way in group number 1. And of course, you have some of the more usual suspects, I would say. The Hervlev Eagles have been kicking around for a while. They still find themselves in a very, very good spot. You talk about the teams right now that would be safe, including Deadly Phantoms, a team with previous Elite Division experience. Of course, they've been out of the Elite Division for a while, but have held steady within Pro. You would have 3 teams here that could find themselves in a rather unfortunate situation in terms of potential relegation spots. But then, of course, at the very bottom, Athletic Bulls, Ice Bear, and Loft Gaming. Very surprised to see Ice Bar in there. I thought they looked pretty good on a Pro broadcast that we covered this past week. Unfortunately for them, things just haven't gone their way. Still just 1 win in 12 games. So rough look there. We take a look at group number 2, though. At the top on points percentage, it is Purification, 7-0-1 to kick off this new season. You have Opera Hockey, Gunners, another usual suspect in Pro with Arctic, Björklöven Esports there as well. We talk about the 3 teams that would find themselves back in Pro if the season were to end today, teams that could find themselves in a little bit of trouble, and teams that could definitely find themselves in trouble. Powerhouse HC and Xbox at the bottom, despite the fact, as you can see there, for Ultimatum, they do have 2 wins, both of them, though, overtime wins on the season so far. But talking about the top of Group 2 with Purification, not as much Elite Division experience in recent seasons, but you can take a look here at the numbers. Very well-rounded scoring metrics. Goaltending has been stellar, 88.16% for Carlson so far this season, and it won't be much of a surprise to you here as we take a look at some of these league-wide stats. We'll actually show some love to the goalies here first, and you look at the save percentage, and amongst starters, Carlson, 8 games, 88%. Not too many people able to compete with that. Again, the 5 games played, 5-0 for Lepadinho, which is tremendous stuff, but we'll see if they can maintain that through a few more games played. So Carlson doing a tremendous job. In terms of skaters in general, we look leading the way in terms of points, and it's one of those names that, hey, we'll get used to eventually here. I'm gonna have to if you continue up performances like this, 34 points in 12 games. I want to know, let me know correct pronunciation, because I have a feeling I'm going to need to know it sooner rather than later. Not only, of course, leading the league in points, leading the league in goals as well. Very difficult to do when you look at some names like here, Persuition, Opera Hockey, Niskalaukos. You got guys that have been in the mix, Elite Division, Pro Division experience for a very, very long time. Not easy to outscore players like that. But of course, ultimately, we have someone who has stepped up. Easy for me to say, about as difficult for me to say as the name itself. Let's take a look at the ECL's light division, our third tier here for the ECL and Sports Gamer. We take a look at Group 1, of course, going off of points percentage as we do, with 6 Sticks Misfits. God, I can't wait to call some of your games on broadcast. That's not going to mess Sin and I up all the time. You also have Almost Famous up there, Hexa Esports as well. Got to give a shout out to them as we continue on through Group 1. And of course, you kind of talk about teams that might have the safety and everything heading in the next season. That light division can be a bit of a toss-up, to say the least. You can see quite a bit of roster turnover within the light division. And of course, one team, Northern Dust, still looking for their first win on the season, yet to do so through 6 games. But we focus primarily, of course, on those teams at the top. And well, talking about the Misfits here, let's take a look at these numbers. 36 points in 12 games for Lamsa, leading the way, which is, again, regardless of what division you're in, if you're able to put up points like that, there's no such thing, at least from my viewpoint, as an easy division within the ECL. And indeed, to be able to put up numbers like that, tremendous stuff. They have phenomenal goaltending from Ranta, as you would expect. All the signs of a team that can absolutely compete for potential promotion. When you talk about the scoring efforts, you talk about the goaltending that you're seeing as well. But that is just Group 1. We go now to Group number 2, just 2 teams above that 2 points per game mark, Bonebreakers and Pasalan. So we'll take a look at Bonebreakers, though, kind of leading the way right now with the 8 wins on the season, 2 of them in overtime, but you see the difference there, the 1 extra loss for Pasalan so far. Bonebreakers just ahead on points, leading the way in Group 2. And again, it's another club where, in terms of the kind of broadcasting coverage that Sin and I have had over the last few seasons, not a team that we've seen really at all, or players that we've seen at all, which is kind of a rarity. Throughout pro, throughout your lights and your cores, you'll often see some players that have had that higher up experience. But at the end of the day, and not to say, of course, that there hasn't been that pro experience, you get the point, though. You're still seeing performances like this, again, in a very, very tough tier to play in. And especially, too, having that many players suit up for games, not easy to have that kind of continued success as well. You see a lot of top teams moving forward with the same kind of 6, maybe 7. So to already be up to 8 players having a bet on the ice so far this season for Bonebreakers, it's a good sign. It's a good sign for their depth and in general, just to be able to put up those points. But as mentioned, Pasalan not too far behind them as you continue to scroll down through and talk about the teams that could perhaps be in a little bit of trouble. Again, it's early at the end of the day, and you can see the discrepancy in some of the games played as well, which, again, is why point percentage is a good way to go. But let's talk about Group number 3, leading the way. Just 10 games played compared to Neptune Hockey's 22, but it is Invasion at 8-1 on this season so far, 27 points through those 10 games. They are leading the way here. And of course, some other familiar names that we have seen in the past that we saw through our coverage here on the Wraparound in the prior campaign, the prior season. But in taking a look at Invasion, again, it's a weird team to judge due to the lack of games compared to some of their direct competition. But when you have numbers like this from that top 3, you can see, of course, why the record is as strong as it is. It's just a matter of, can they sustain this through the rest of the season? The goaltending as well has been incredibly solid. Again, all the calling cards, as we've seen through the other divisions, of a team that can still stick around towards the top and make a push for promotion come the end of the season. But taking a look here at some of the stats, it is Benny. I believe it's Wee Benny, if I'm not mistaken, for Neptune Hockey, leading the way, 55 points in 19 games. And in general, look at that top 3 for Neptune Hockey. Absolutely crushing it right now. Talk about warning signs and, kind of being able to see, like, okay, that's a team to keep an eye out on. Doesn't get much more obvious than that. So certainly keep an eye out on Neptune Hockey moving forward. And of course, in talking about the goaltenders, We always love to give goaltenders some spotlight here. Quite a few, as you can see, with more than a handful of games that are still hovering above 85%, if not closer to that 90% save percentage. It was a very interesting conversation and discussion as to what this season was going to be for goaltenders, especially the start of NHL 24 with the tether system. But now, of course, goalies have those free options again, and we're seeing some stellar goaltending throughout these divisions. So that is your look in at our light division. Let's take a look at the ECL's core division. Of course, our fourth tier here, and want to give a little bit of a spotlight to, of course, some of the clubs that we have as they continue on throughout their journey in the ECL. Top of Group 1 right now, the Aspire Dragons at 10-0 and 10-0-1-1 technically. 10-1-1. There you go. We're gonna get used to this format eventually. Maybe I might get used to it. I might not. But the Aspire Dragons have been awesome, and of course, you have a handful of teams here that are still over that 2-point per game mark, which is certainly a very positive sign. But you do see the discrepancy in games played. 16 for Bare Knuckles Hockey, whereas you have a couple of teams here at the top, including Mites with 8 games played so far. And taking a look though at the Aspire Dragons, who again are off to a tremendous start this season, and it's Greek Freak leading the way, man. 47 points in 12 games is outrageous. There's some good scoring across the board, to say the least, but Greek Freak is absolutely crushing it right now. The goaltending for both of these guys, tremendous stuff. 2 shutouts on the season as well. Goals against average, both under a 2. We've talked about those positive signs. Certainly some positive signs for the Dragons so far this season. They are a team to keep an eye on, especially as they start to make up some of these games. As you see, some clubs 16, 18 games as well throughout group number 1. We get to group number 2, and again, another pretty close group. 6 teams with at least 2 points per game, as again, 2.5 points a game already. 6-1-1 through the 8 games, I believe, for Fearless Hockey. Let me know if I'm incorrect on that one. But in terms of taking a look at some of the numbers here, of course, we saw the stellar numbers elsewhere. This is not a team, though, that's racking up these points by dominating on the score sheet. And it was one of the more interesting teams to look at as I was going through these, because look at this. It is all defense and all goaltending, to say the least. Both goalies with at least a 90% save percentage, 3 shutouts on the season, and shutout periods here, 18 combined through the 8 games played. Tremendous. Just absolutely tremendous effort from these guys in terms of the defensive efforts. You don't often see that for a team at the top of a group. Normally it's a little bit of everything. Right there, it's just pure defense and goaltending, and I'm very intrigued to see if that can hold up. As we continue to scroll down here into group number 3, talk about a great point percentage. 2.81 for the Silver Sword Griffins. 14 wins out of 16 games played. Absolutely phenomenal. As we'll take a look here at the numbers, and again, a lot more of what you are accustomed to seeing for a top team or a team atop a group. Absolutely destroying worlds when it comes to point production. The goaltending, well, the defense in general could be an area of concern. They do need to tighten up on that side of things. You can get away with outscoring opponents consistently in the regular season, but playoff wise, pressure's on the line. You want to be able to know that you can reliably drop back, play that shutdown defense, get that dominant goaltending that can help steal you games as well. Because if that puck luck's not going your way, and all of a sudden you go from scoring, look at this. Let's go back and get an exact number for the Griffins here, instead of just being like, oh, what about this for goals for? You look at this: 6 goals for per game. How sustainable is that come playoff time, I wonder? Whereas goals against, it is the 3rd lowest in this particular group. Rusty Bulls leading the way in that category, a team that we saw quite a bit last season. I just wonder how sustainable that is. I hope for the rest of the teams in this group, in the division in general, that it's not sustainable, because that looks like a championship level pace right there. But again, it is still early days, so keep an eye out. And of course, we have group number 4 as well. Just 3 teams, though, above that 2-point per game mark. It is Nameless leading the way over Sack Brothers, who of course have been around in the ECL for quite a while now at this stage. It is worth noting, of course, you have Frenzy that is DNF the season, so they will be forfeiting all of their games and everything like that, so not too much of a factor at this stage. Ultimately, though, and taking a look at Nameless, 8 wins out of 10 games played so far this season. A more familiar story, the high firepowered offense, maybe not to the same extent that we've seen with some other teams. Solid goaltending as well. That is more what we are accustomed to seeing in terms of a team leader, that well-rounded approach, I should say. And as we get a look at the stats here, you already know who's going to be at the top of this list. And there's some good separation between the top 2 for the Griffins over Snippy Statue of Sack Brothers. I mean, again, this is just outrageous. 3 of the top 4 in the league right now. Tremendous stuff from the Griffins. Very intrigued as to whether or not they can keep this up. And you look at the 30 goal scorers so far, there's only 4 of them. And the top 2 are on the Griffins, and 3 of the top 5 up there for goal scorers as well. It's been an absolutely insane pace that's worth keeping an eye on. And of course, we talk about the goaltending as well. We focus on the, goaltenders that have a few more games as opposed to just one out there. And we're continuing to see really solid save percentages, 90%, 89%. Very intrigued to see, and tremendous name from Ask Goalmaster, who plays goalie. That's a shame. You need to be a grinder in front of the net. Park that booty. I'm very intrigued to see if those save percentages stay as people continue to get accustomed to the game. For now, though, that is your look at our core division. Let's take a look at the ECL's Neo division, of course, our entry level tier, and let's break down what we have so far. Group number 1, sorting by point per game. It is Russian Lightning leading the way, 7 wins out of their first 10 games. Very, very strong start for them, to say the least. Of course, as we scroll down, we have Group 2 as well. And look at this, top 4 teams all over 2 points per game. It is the Ice Vikings currently leading the way right now with 7 of their 8 games finishing in wins. Easy for me to say. You scroll down to group number 3, and it just keeps getting better in terms of the percentages. The Urban Evasion, 9 wins out of their 10 games so far. Group number 4, led by Old Hogs, 5 out of 6. Good start to the season. Of course, as you continue to scroll down, you can see the discrepancy in games played. We see that throughout all the tiers, of course, really until the end of the season. Group 5, 9-1-0 on the season so far. 9-0-1, I should say. It is an overtime loss for Oviedo, I would imagine, or Ojeveto. I'm not sure. Let me know. I have no problem admitting that I'm not sure, because I want to know. That is the point of this show, to not only inform me, but to mostly inform me. That's what we're here for at the end of the day. But again, a really, really good start to their season, but some tough competition within group number 5. Group 6 as well, led by Nordland at 2.5 on the season so far in terms of points per game. Another team to keep an eye on. I always find, though, that with Neo and Light, those lower tiers, you do often see rapid changes. At least we saw that quite a bit last season, where, hey, you never know who's going to find some of that momentum. But speaking of momentum, I mean, we mentioned Urban Evasion at the top of their particular group, and this is why. You are looking at 3 players and probably at a group in general that will not be in Neo for all that long. You could argue whether or not they should have been in Neo in general this season. They are just destroying worlds. I mean, again, those are just ungodly numbers. You're talking at the very least 5 points a game for the worst of the three forwards in terms of the percentages and, of course, goal scoring as well. The only three players to eclipse, easy for me to say, 20 goals on the season as well. Goaltending wise, always intrigued to look at this. And again, a lot of 90 save percentages so far, including for goaltenders that have more than just 2 games played. So it is a consistent theme, really, I would say, throughout all the tiers. Some high-level goaltending going on right now, some elite scorers, to say the least. It is still very early days for this particular ECL season, our Winter 24 campaign. But that is your look at our Neo Division. So with that, everybody, that is your full look at everything going on here on the show. Of course, I want to thank you all for tuning in here. As always, hey, you have suggestions? Let me know. Hit me up on Discord. Hit me up on Twitter. I'm always intrigued at what you guys think that we could do better here with this particular show. And of course, pronunciations. Help me out, as always. And I are always trying to hit the mark on names, myself included. But with that, again, we thank you very much for tuning in here and checking out the Wraparound. Again, make sure to check out the PlayStation Showcase Tournament. All the information up on sportsgamer.gg. For now, we will say goodbye. Thank you again for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.